There's forms of racism and there's forms of homophobia. In this day and age, it's an absolute joke that they're even there. There'll be an evolution of the pro model, and I think it will change. I think it'll have to change because I think some of these people, as a company, people expect more from you than just to back a rider.
Hello, I'm Head Bluefield and welcome to Benevolent Business. In this podcast today, we're talking to Jeff, the owner of Clown Skateboards. If you're not a skateboarder, this will still be a phenomenal conversation. Really interesting to talk about a business journey, a company that sort of started way back in the early 2000s or early 90s even, and then sort of saw its demise, where it's now come back better than ever. And in this conversation, we talk about experience as a young adult, ignorance in business, maybe partying too much and not working enough, or working too much and partying too much. So it's a great conversation, so have a listen and see what you think. Let's get started. So Jeff, welcome to Benevolent Business and thank you for coming on.
Oh, no worries at all. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you here. A lot of these questions are just going to be selfishly because I'm curious anyway and want to know more. So can you just define clown, circus, the difference and what they are as such?
Well, there's clown and clown in action, which is a CIC, which is a non-for-profit. We brought back clown 2020, middle of 2020 to bring back, and part of bringing it back, we wanted to make sure we had a non-for-profit which ran alongside it. When clown was first around in 2000 to 2005, we'd done a lot of teaching, we'd done a lot of travel. We was always trying to get back to the community. Yeah. But this time we wanted to come back so it'd be an official and actually a CIC, so then we can work with other organisations, find ways to fund things, and just make it a little bit more, not genuine, because it's always been genuine is not the right word, but just to make it a little bit more official so we can feel that it can help grow and not just build the scene, not just help the kids in the scene, but a little bit further afield as well. So
what motivates you to want that non-profit side of the business?
I think it's, after finishing with clown, a lot of the work that I'd done was in that sort of areas anyway, and it's always been a priority for all of us actually to help individuals, not just us, but help people around you. And I don't think that, I know within inside the skate scene, it's key to do that, and also a lot of people inside the skate scene do it. They're naturally, it's a natural community, and also it naturally helps each other. Anyway, when you're skating together, you learn that. Yeah, massively. That's one thing that I've loved throughout years of skating. It's just that sense of community. Like, I've gone around the world and met people within a couple of days. I'm standing in their camper van and travelling around with them anyway. Exactly, and do you know what? I've had the blessing of that, being able to travel around the world and just sleep on the floor when I get into the skateboard. And so I think that community aspect is something that's always been there. The one thing that I think as skating is that the philosophy and the community side of it is amazing. It's just, I think people need to see how they react and actually take on board a lot of the attitude that skaters have got. And it could make things a lot better generally for other people. And I just want to see Clown in Action help transfer that great community feel and take it wider. Not just bring more kids on board skating and not help out on kids on mental health and well-being and stuff like that, but also just the general public to realise this is a really good scene that can help. The attitude can help a lot of other people. Yeah, and it's just about support. Yeah, I mean, it's not all about. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on this, but it's not all about people think you're a gnarly motherfucker that drinks or smokes too much. And yeah, there is an element of that, but also there's a massive caring and loving element and support element. And I just think a lot of people could learn by the attitude of a skater, and I'm hoping that the CIC could help show that on a wider basis.
Oh, amazing. Because there's that, as you touched on, huge stigma around, as a skateboarders, that picture that people paint in their mind of what a skateboarder is when they walk past, and oftentimes it is like, oh my god, I better cross the road and avoid them, and they're just here to cause damage and trouble and scratch everything.
Well, a lot of it comes through like a rebellious teenager.
Yeah.
And why shouldn't a teenager be rebellious? You know, when you're growing up and you're learning. But that doesn't mean that's the whole scene. It's just that it's just not the scene at all. And there's so much love and support, and there's so many good things happening inside the skate community, and that's growing and growing and growing. And part of what we wanted to do was come back, was actually be a part of that and actually help grow that aspect of it and help bring other people into it that do want to skate but also want to help out.
and because it's a great mechanism to be able to help out and find other ways to help out, and also it gives us an opportunity to. I worked with a lot of causes, and I've worked with a lot of organisations, and they all emphasise on going to get funding from this body or going to get funding from that body, and we've set as president where actually we want to make the things that we do self-sufficient. So if we raise £1,000, it's where we spend that £1,000. It's not us going to a trust and saying, "Can you give us £1,000 so we can give that over to someone else?" We don't want to work like that. We want to raise our own funds. We want to find ways to raise our own funds and become self-sufficient so we can build the things that we want to build by us with the skate community, but it's generating money to be able to do it, and that's what we're trying to do. We don't want to go for certain grants and certain funding, because if you become hooked on that, then every year criteria changes.
Yeah.
So you can't build a sustainable model if your sustainable model is getting grants from other people. So we're trying to find ways to generate money to be able to do it ourselves, without go to other people. Yeah.
It's wonderful to know that there's a brand in skateboarding that is so driven by community and building that profile of the community.
I think most skate brands are. We're just a little bit better off than some other people because we've had experience in that space, and it's just transferring our knowledge that we've picked up over the years to be able to do that. And I think a lot of brands, I think the whole skate community want to do it. It's just that they might not have the experience or the know-how to how to do certain things. And it's hard to do, but I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and speak to anybody. And I think that's what the big difference is. And it's great coming back. It's really surprising coming back, the amount of people that I still know inside the scene, and actually some of the connections I've got inside the scene where I know I used to skate with God knows how many years ago, they're now quite high up in a company.
Yeah.
And it's quite odd to have that situation. Like when we come back, we had nothing. Literally, it was an idea that we're going to come back, we're going to do this, and then I was sat in my back room saying, and I thought to myself, how the fuck am I even going to do this? Everything's shut, nowhere's open, I can't go and see anybody, can't do. So literally, I just got on the phone and started bashing people on the phone. Like, how do I do this now? And we managed to do it. And it's, but literally, it was first 6 weeks. I was phoning everybody, talking to everybody from UK to Europe, over in the States, saying what is happening. Do you know what I mean? Just to find out, and then thought, well, no, we can do this. We can do this.
So you've alluded there about Clown's history. So are you happy to go into like the history behind Clown being around and then that demise or that stopping? Yeah. What happened there?
Well, we started off in 2000. Well, actually, it was more become official in 2000, but we wasn't a scene as such. A little small scene with a bunch of us together, probably about 1999, 1998, 98. But we decided to put it as a company. We wouldn't call it a brand because we've never really called us a brand because I don't feel we are a brand. We feel it's a company, but it's not a brand because brands work in separate ways to what we don't want to work in that way. Run it for 5 years, and literally it just come down to the fact that we was knackered. Actually, we was absolutely knackered. We was constantly out and about doing stuff, constantly trying to make products, sell products, travelling up and down the country, either doing a skate jam or a skate school in Newcastle one weekend, and the following weekend it would be down in, I don't know, Dorset. We was constantly out and about. We was even though we grew up in the East End, and it was in East End, London, we never classed ourselves as East London because probably half of my time was spent or a third of my time was spent in London, a third of my time was spent in Edinburgh, and a third of my time was spent in Wales. So, because just with friends all around the country, so we was knackered, to be honest with you, and also we had to start earning money. We all had life commitments that we had to start actually growing up on, and so it came a choice where do we do that and actually carry on struggling through, or because at that point he was queuing up to get married and he was like, I can't carry on doing this because we wasn't earning any money. Everything we earned went straight back in. We got zero out of it apart from t-shirts and skateboards. That was it. So he said, right, okay, let's go, because me and Big Gas were very, very close. Do you know what I mean? So we carried on working together on doing bits and pieces, but then said, right, we'll bring back clown in 18 months, 2 years. And actually the market at that point, 2005, everything started to dip a little bit. It was starting to get really, really tough. And we thought it was a good time to not close, because I don't think we ever closed, was to go dormant. It's just that we then got into a life cycle of home, mortgage, all that sort of stuff. But we used to still meet regular, like son Skipper and my son Skipper's got from how many years, and constantly met him, got to talk to him every year, and we always like, let's come back, let's come back, let's come back. And it was 2019, I put a show on for Simon, and all the boys turned up and they said, are we going to get this back together? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then the pandemic hit, which actually gave me the breathing space. My agency that I was running at the time was all to do with arts, culture and causes. And every single one of those sectors closed at that point. So actually I lost 85% of my work in 4 weeks. So I was like, okay, what the fuck am I going to do now? And I'm like, right, I've got the time, let's do it. And that was it, that's why we come back. So it never closed, it was dormant. It was dormant, yeah.
So what do you feel is different now, or do you feel like the challenges are still going to be there the same as you was mentioning, like running from place to place, constantly doing things, constantly busy?
No, I'm a lot older, a lot wiser.
Okay.
So the hard work still has to be put in, yeah, but
smart work.
No, I'm like everybody else. You should learn by your mistakes, and over those 15 years, which we was closed or dormant, then I fucked up on other things. So I've learned a lot. And I'm always, that's one thing that I like to do, carry on learning. So you can only keep on learning. So I think we're just a little bit more smarter, we're a little bit more direct. I know how to run a business properly now as well. I hope I know how to run a business properly now. Be big-headed if I say I definitely do, but I'm still learning on that. So I think we were a little bit wiser. And I think the difference is, you know, it's like when you're a certain age and you just skate all the time, it's just about skating, it's just about having a laugh and, you know what I mean, stuff. And it still is, to me, it's, the fun side of it has to be massive. But I was constantly battered. It was either drinking or too much drugs at that point as well. So it was, yeah.
So you mentioned like constantly learning and being wiser. What is, putting you on the spot here, what would you say is the biggest mistake you've made that was necessary to learn from, and what was that lesson?
Biggest mistake I've ever made. I think the biggest mistake I've ever made was actually putting clown dormant.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got to admit, we should have found another way to be able to do it. So what I've learned by that is that, and that's what I've learned over the years, is that, do you know what, when things don't seem to add up, there is ways to making it happen. Do you know what, since that point, I've always had the philosophy, there's never a problem, there's always a solution. And I've been blessed over the years to actually teach up many a person, do you know what I mean, who's worked with me or been an apprentice or something like that. And I've always said to them, do you know what, I'm here to help, but do you know what, come with me with the solution and the problem. And then if that solution's not right, we can find the solution together, but you need to think about it. So I think, to me, there's never a problem, there's only solutions in this matter of you finding them. And at that point, I don't think I was old enough or wise enough to have that mentality and to be able to do that, because probably could have found a solution. And so, but then again, I think the learning curve and the parts that I've learned over the years is probably going to be benefit to clown now, because some of it has been done on someone else's expense. So, fucking handy.
So I want to try and extrapolate the key. So you're saying the biggest mistake was having clown go dormant, but the key lesson there obviously is what you've learned from your career from that. So what's, trying to think of someone that's in a situation, if they have got, whether it's a company, a project, something within their life that seems like it's becoming too much and just overbearing and it's taking up too much time and all of their energy. And what's the key thing? How would you advise someone in that situation to come to you if they were thinking of quitting whatever it is, their project, their company? How would you advise them around making that decision?
A lot of that's done down to emotion, because actually it becomes, once you're running a project, you can emotionally attach to that project. If you are emotionally attached to that project, it's quite easy for it to engulf you and for it to overwork you. where you actually have to step back, reevaluate it and look at it. It's a project. So if this is a problem, where are the solutions? And there is a solution. And once you evaluate that and look at it constructively, you have to evaluate things and then take the emotion out of it. For mind's sake,
difficult thing to do.
It's a very difficult thing to do, but you have to take the emotion out of it and actually, then you can go forward. So it's a re-evaluation, because everything's a problem. It's just a matter of you finding a solution. And you can only find a solution if you admit it's a problem. And if you run on emotions, we all need to run on emotions. I run on emotions on cloud, but sometimes I cut myself off my emotions, because there's an aspect of it that you can't take that emotion with you. You have to be more level-headed. So it's the matter of you sitting back and re-evaluating it, and not just making a snap decision where I'm going to close this, because it might not be right. But if you re-evaluate it and reset things up in it, it could be right. It's just a matter of it's hard when you start something. It's hard to let that go. But I'm not saying that you will always find a solution. But if you evaluate it and then you put it down to not instinct, but you put it down to cold hard facts, and then you shut it, that's a good reason. Because if you just shut it because it's becoming too much and it's affecting you emotionally, then you're closing it for an emotional period. And if you close something for an emotional period, you're never going to get rid of that emotion. You're going to feel like you fucked up and you failed.
Yeah.
But if the realism is it's financially not worth it, or this is not worth it, or that's not worth it, you run on pros and cons on it, then you have a right to either carry on or a right to shut. But it becomes less emotion and more practicality. And you've got to be practical when you're running a business or running a project. You have to be practical. Emotions are great because they keep you going, but it's the whole thing. When you start something, you've got first 2 years are a joy. It's a honeymoon. You're running on emotion, you're running on thing, and actually your first win is amazing because you've got to win, and then you carry on and you carry on and carry on. But it's then the practicality of like where you stay as a business, and do I grow or do I stay still or do I think? And the natural thing for everybody is to grow. The growth is not always right. Growth is not always right. You can grow without growing in the matter of members. You can grow in the matter of, because as soon as you're at a certain level of people that you have, your costs go up, they don't go down. And people think, oh, the more people I've got, the more money I have. Bollocks. It's not like that. It's so not like that. Because actually, there's a period where you hit a level and you add that one more person, and the cost effectiveness of having that one person outweighs the money that you're going to derive from that person. So it's not feasible. And it's so, there is, and I think that's a big learning curve that you have to look at. And also you have to reevaluate what you're doing. I reevaluate every quarter. I reevaluate everything every quarter. Not so I can shift and make a change, but I need to reevaluate everything. So I get rid of my emotions every quarter to go through everything. To like, is this working? Is it feasible? Is it not feasible? Do you know what I mean? What do I need to, I want to do that, but what do I need to change to make sure that happens? And then by doing that, it allows me to shift when I need to shift, be quiet, lean when I need to be lean on it, but it gives me a proper vision on everything, which is what I want. And then at those points, I'm not emotional, because if something is not working, even though it is great and I love doing it, it's gone.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna affect the things that are working.
It's really refreshing to hear your answer to that, and I resonate with it a lot, because the whole philosophy you talked about there is kind of what I applied to my own business when I was losing all my staff and it was all collapsing, and just evaluating what I was going to do, how I was going to move forward. So it's nice to hear from someone I see as so wise to say the same thing that I was thinking back at that time.
Yeah.
So with Clown, I love the graphics and think they're wonderful. So one big question, Banksy, Clown, with you, how did that happen? Because I was almost in disbelief when I saw it. I was like, hold on a minute, that looks like Banksy's artwork. And then obviously found out more about it.
Really hope you're enjoying the conversation so far with Jeff. I interrupt you this week with the sponsor for this week, which of course, same as last week, is next week's episode. In this coming episode next week, we'll be talking with Terry Lewis, the founder of 3GI Technology, as well as RoboShadow. So here's a little snippet of that conversation.
I think one of the hardest things that you do in anything is learn to get over that fear of interacting with people and facing off to people. It helped me to learn to get ahead in environments that probably wasn't as welcoming due to my age. Managing culture in the earlier days, I think, was probably one of the more things that got us where we was. One of the hardest things that you do, it ends up being better for them, weirdly, as well. And especially in the way that we do it, we're very proud of that. Like, we're unbelievably proud of that. We're the younger generation, and I may get in trouble for this, but I do know this is a very difficult subject for a lot of people. We are particularly lucky, to be fair. But I think, and what I try to drill into my management team, you cannot put a price on a phone call.
Now that sounds phenomenal, very exciting, and I can confirm, it was a great conversation as much as this one. So make sure to check that out next week, but otherwise let's get back to Jeff.
Well, I've known Banksy for a number of years, and actually we was really, really good friends. And when he first came to London, we hung out a lot. I used to help him as much as I can. He used to help me as much as he could. And we'd done his first ever London show together in Ribot Street, which was the pinnacle of him actually starting to build up. We released his first ever book with him. Worked on a number of things with him over the years. And the thing was, he was probably in the same boat as what we was at that point. Do you know what I mean? We was just, I don't know, struggling creatives, let's put it that way, struggling creatives. So we was trying to do things and just doing all different things at that point. Do you know what I mean? And when I first knew him, actually, Clown wasn't live at that point, do you know what I mean? So in 1999, when we done Ribot Street, Clown it's in the head, but it wasn't actually a live project or a live thing to happen. So one of the things I wanted to do is like, I just liked him as a person. We was mates, and I said, look, shit, I need some graphics for our first run. Would you do them? And I need a logo. And he was like, yeah, and that was it. So he done our logo for us, and then he done our first 2 graphic boards as well, which was a set of 3 to come out, and we sent them. We only made 20 of those as a test, because that's all we could afford to print as well at that point. So we'd done those, and we started giving them out a few to the boys, Si and Chris Oliver, people like that at that point, and then sent the rest around to people to say, what do you reckon? Do you want to take them? And it was quite odd, because actually everyone come back and say, love the logo. The other 2 boards, they said they were shit. That was it. No one liked the work, because Banksy weren't at that level then. Do you know what I mean? It was starting to be. It was starting to be, and it was only. So he'd done the graphics, because what we used to do as well, we used to set up Ribot Street, and then also we had an email system up where people used to email us, and then we used to tell them and say, well, we're going to be in this pub at this time. If you want to buy any work, just come down. We used to literally turn up in the pub, fill the car with paintings, turn up in the pub, put them all around, and get drunk and sell paintings, go home with some cash in their pocket. It was that simple. It was that simple. And at one point, like, a lot of storage was my flat in, where was I then? I was over at London Fields, and it was just smothered in, that's the only place we had to store it, so my whole flat was smothered in canvases. I know, when I think about it now, and then we'd say, probably every 2 weeks, used to turn up at the pub, flog them, and then off we go.
Wow.
So that's and so he was a friend, and we just carried on working together on bits and pieces. Do you know, we started doing some other boards together, but we never got around to finishing. It's quite an odd one. I think I've actually got the artwork somewhere. I don't know, but yeah. So it's just a mate.
Yeah.
That was it. It's just a mate that we just helped each other out.
It's a handy mate to have when you're trying to think of graphics to do for your skateboards.
Well, do you know what? Everybody else was, when we put it out, everyone's like, what's all this stencil work? Everyone was like dead against it. They didn't see what it was, you know what I mean? And it was only, I really liked it because I liked his work and I liked his thought process. That we're like, no, this is the way that we're gonna go. And that was it. And it was literally a friend. Nothing more, nothing less.
Wow. That's quite fortuitous or serendipitous to think that's how it all came about. So we've talked a lot about the values that you have for the company. So in terms of when it comes to building a team and also having riders that you sponsor, is that a key criteria within someone's personality in terms of aligning with your values, with the values of the company?
It's a massive part of it. It's a massive part of it. It's like it's really odd. Like with Chris, I've known Chris Oliver since he was 14, and he's 40 now. So I've known Chris Oliver for 26 years. I've known Simon Skip nearly 30 years.
Yeah.
It's very much, we've never run the thing on skill, we've run the thing on actually you as a person over skill, and it's like there's a certain level of person that, I don't know, you just have to be nice and genuine, you know what I mean? And without, we're not interested in attitude, we're really not interested in attitude, you know what I mean? I am this skater, I'm not, but it's just like, I don't give a fuck who you are, you know what I mean? It's like, it's your attitude and actually knowing that there's more to just being sponsored. There's more to just being sponsored, and I think that's where, when we come back, and when we was coming back and I was speaking to Si and I said, this is what we're going to do with the CIC as well. He said, yeah, I mean, because like, he was like 48 now, and he's like, look man, I'm too old for this. I'm like, well, we want to do this and I need you to help me out on this and to be part of it. And he was like, yeah, if you're doing that, then I'm in. And I think that's why Chris come in as well. And I think they're really proud that what we do as well, and they know full well that Si works really hard on the team and getting the team together and stuff like that, and I work really hard with Michelle and the CIC things, and then they know, before it was, the priority was we've done it as a team to go, sorry about that, done it as a team to take around to do the schools and do whatever, but this now, they still work hand in hand, but they know the priority is not just team. Because I do honestly think as well that a team, I don't know, you've got to, why should you just back one individual when you can back 20 kids? So there is that sort of thing, and I think sometimes it's different in the UK than what it might be in, say, the US. You know what I mean? If you start taking on riders in the US and you start making the person pro, it's a whole new ballgame, it's a whole new situation that I'm not sure us as a company, even though we are going into the US, that we want to be a part of. Because I don't know, it's a different kettle of fish, there's a different level of money involved, there's a different level of, they are classed as a sportsman, and there's a lot more to it, the big agents involved and stuff, and I'm not sure that's something that we want to enter in a way, and I don't know if we have to. I think we are looking at it like, yeah, we want to back some riders in America, and we are looking for someone at the moment, and I've got a really good friend looking in New York for us, but it's how the mentality in the States is completely different to the mentality into the UK, and I think sometimes people think, oh right, yeah, if you're a pro, you're going to get this, you're going to get that, and we try our utmost hardest to give the guys as much as we can, do you know what I mean? And do you know what, I think every month they get a package, every month, all the skaters get stuff every month, and they never run out of boards, never run out of clothing, so we try our hardest on that. But when people think, especially the UK, do you think you're going to become a pro and you're going to earn a shitload of dollar out of it? No, because do you know what, there's not that much margin in selling the boards, and actually you've got to sell a shitload of them to give the person something to live on. You know what I mean? So it's not attainable in the UK. It might be different in the States, but I do honestly think that there'll be an evolution of the pro model, and I think it will change. I think it will have to change, because I think some of these people, I think as a company, people expect more from you than just to back a rider. And that's what we're trying to achieve, do you know what I mean? I think to have a team is as important as having the CIC. They have to go hand in hand. And I think if you just run on the back of just a team, then it's a bit one dimension. And the support is there for a team of 5. When I say, why support a team of 5 when you can support a team of 50, or back 50 kids on one hand, or 5 individual skaters? So there's got to be a compromise. So I think there needs to be maybe a shift in that a little bit, especially in the States financially. I think there needs to be a shift in that.
I'd love to go into your theories there and how you think it could be remodelled and changed. But unfortunately, we are tight for time, so I want to finish with the one question I ask every guest, and that is, what is something that exists within the world today that you hope can be eradicated in the future?
I've got probably a big list of those. And do you know what, but the one, there's forms of racism and there's forms of homophobia, and there's been that actually, in this day and age, it's an absolute joke that they're even there. The one thing I'd like to see eradicated, because it is not needed anymore, is these days which are, like, you get Women's Day, right? They're needed, right? But as a society, if we acted decent towards each other and towards every person, they wouldn't be needed. So these specific days for, I don't know, individual genders and individual things, I want to see them eradicated, not because they are needed at the moment, but I want to see them eradicated because they're not needed.
Get them to a point of redundancy.
Yeah, that's what I'd like to see, is that you don't need a dedicated day for something because it doesn't matter. You're as equal as that person next to you. And I think that's something I'd like to see. And also, I've got to throw another one in.
Go for it.
UK, party politics needs to be eradicated.
Party politics.
It doesn't work. Party politics is a gang, and politicians stand on the platform trying to eradicate gangs, even though they're part of the biggest gang ever. But the last election, I saw so much hate between friends and family because of party politics. It's like, it's a joke.
Wow. So with that, you've managed to answer all of the world's problems. If we can not have the need for days, because everybody, a specific day dedicated to something, because then we can solve all the problems and all live equally in fact.
Well, it should be equal, do you know what I mean? They're needed now, and they are needed, but it should be a point in life where humanity is right to each other, so you don't need them.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. That's a wonderful answer, and well, every answer to every question was wonderful. So thanks for coming on, Jeff.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So what a phenomenal conversation we've had with Jeff this week. I've learned a lot, and this is something that I'm really enjoying with this podcast. I'm learning so much of what to do, what not to do, especially when it comes to like sorting out a podcast and such. There's going to be a lot of improvements coming that you're going to see in terms of just simple things like audio quality, of where I'm just learning much more about the equipment and such. But also just in these conversations, I love the fact that selfishly I get to ask the questions that I've really struggled with. And I know full well that because I've struggled with them, there's going to be listeners, you guys, that are going to be struggling with those situations as well. So to be able to sit down with people that have been there, done that, achieved the things that I really want to achieve in life, and just be able to ask them how they did it, where they went wrong, where I went wrong, and what they see the potential solution being for me, or what the mistakes were I made, it's really great to get that insight. And I'm really grateful you stuck around to the end. I'm really thankful. So thank you so much for sticking around to the end, and make sure to tune in next week for the next week's episode. And of course, if you think there's someone that can gain value from this conversation, make sure to share with them and share with everyone else. So till next week, thank you. This has been the Benevolent Business Podcast.